What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another video. Now, in today's video, instead of solving a TOEFL speaking or writing question, I want to talk to you guys about how I was able to become fluent in the Korean language, okay? Now, this might sound like something that's strange to you because obviously my appearance and my ethnicity would make you assume that Korean should be my first language, but believe it or not, English is the language that I'm most comfortable with now. So I want to share with you the thought processes that I had when I was still a guy who wasn't able to speak Korean fluently, okay? And my wife, my lovely wife, is going to be asking the questions, so you'll be able to hear her angelic voice. Okay? 아무거나. Ask me anything you want.
나 처음에 만났을 때 한국말 잘 했었나요?
By the time I met you, I've already been working with Korean students and Korean teachers for about 6 years. So by that time, I believe that my Korean fluency was pretty high.
그럼 지금은 완벽하게 된 계기가 언제쯤 몇 살 때?
Okay, so I think that I would say that I became officially fluent in Korean pretty recently. Okay, so about maybe a year or two ago is when I became completely fluent in Korean, and that's because when I first met you, when I first met my wife, my Korean speaking proficiency was excellent. My listening was good and my reading was good, but writing in Korean was terrible, right? Because I didn't know the proper spelling, I didn't know the proper spacing between the words, so I can't say that I was fluent when I met you for the first time.
그러면은 한국어 선생님이 있었나요?
No, no Korean teacher.
그러면은 어떻게 단어를 설명을 그때?
Okay, so how I was able to learn a lot of vocabulary and use the words that I learned is I kept experimenting with them. 계속 그 experiment를 했지. So whenever I heard a Korean word that I didn't know before, and whenever I read or heard a Korean expression that I didn't know before, I would remember it and try to use it on you, you know, to see if it's right or wrong. And then if it's wrong, you would tell me why it's wrong. I would remember it better because I would be kind of embarrassed, right? So I say something and you're like, that's not right. And I'd be like, really? But that'll help me remember it more, right? On the flip side, if I got it right, so if I said something new, I tried it out and you were like, oh, good job! How did you know that? Then I'm gonna be really happy and then remember it better, right? So the most important thing is don't be afraid to try things out. You gotta experiment with the language that you wanna learn. You have to become like a scientist, you know? Because if you experiment and you get it right, then that's when you know the proper feel and emotion for the language.
그러면은 한국말을 하면서 가장 많이 틀렸던 거, 트라우마 있을 때. 저 같은 경우는 9구단에서 77을 못 외워서 되게 힘들었었는데 혹시 한국어 하면서 계속 똑같은 걸 계속 틀렸던 거 있었나요?
I've never had a traumatic experience with anything about the language. Well, I never had a hard time memorizing stuff, but there's a funny story. You know how in Korean there are many different ways to say the same thing? Because when you're talking to a person who's your friend or a person who's younger than you, you can speak very comfortably without any formalities, right? But if you're speaking to someone who you don't know or someone who's older than you, then you have to start speaking formally and use 존칭어, right? So I had a hard time with 존칭어. I had a hard time with saying the proper things to my elders, and I guess that would be kind of something that might be traumatic, but it was funny to me. And since it was funny and since I laughed, the other person laughed as well, okay? So for example, what happened was when I went to the gym, I was pretty much inheriting the membership of another person. And the person asked me if I swam. So 그 사람이 나한테 수영하십니까? That's the question that I got. And then since no one ever asked me that question like that, I said, 네, 수영하십니다. So situations like that, occurrences like that are funny. They're funny, right? But if I was the kind of person who thought, oh no, 수영하십니다. If I'm that kind of person, then I would never ever speak Korean ever again, right? But I just thought that it was funny because although I look Korean, although I am Korean, I know that Korean is my second language, okay? And knowing that made the situation funny. So the other thing that you need to do is when you're learning a foreign language, throw away your ego. Throw away your pride, okay? You're learning a new language. You're supposed to talk like a baby, okay? That's obvious. You're supposed to talk like a little child, a baby. But, I mean, why are you so ashamed of that? Don't be ashamed. Have a laugh about it. Because you know how in Korean they say, 웃는 얼굴에 침을 뱉지 못한다? Yeah. When you smile and after making a mistake, if you play it off as it's nothing serious, then the person who heard your mistake is also gonna laugh. And then that's gonna be something that's a fond memory instead of a traumatic experience.
그러면은 안녕하세요를 가장 완벽하게 됐을 때가 언제쯤이었던 것 같아요?
안녕하세요?
그렇게 완벽하게 외국 교포처럼 안녕하세요 이게 안 하고 언제 정확하게
Okay. So my Korean pronunciation became very natural as I spent more time speaking the Korean language with my students and coworkers. That's obviously the most surefire way to adjust your pronunciation. But another really important thing when it comes to intonation and pronunciation is you gotta really care about it. You have to really concern yourself about the way you sound, because most people who are considerate, who are intelligent, they are going to be able to understand what you said, despite the fact that your grammar, your pronunciation, and intonation are subpar, not up to par, not good enough. So they're gonna try their best to understand you, but the biggest problem is some people will not try their best to understand you and they'll pretend that they didn't understand what you said. So the most important thing to mastering the proper and natural intonation or pronunciation of a foreign language is to really care about it. You gotta care. 진짜로 그 원어민처럼 말하고 싶고 발음하고 싶고 인토네이션을 똑같이 따라하고 싶어야 돼. 그런 마음이 있어야지 되던 말든. Exactly. Once that becomes one of your priorities, you're gonna make sure that you record what you say and change the way you talk so that you can sound more like the natives, okay? It's all about comparing yourself to the best example. And the best example, the person that you compare yourself to, has to be dictated by you and only you. Because the kind of speech that you would like to emulate and eventually produce organically on your own is going to be something that's appealing to you and maybe not appealing to another person. So first, have a role model. If you want to learn a foreign language, find a man or a woman or even a child who speaks very persuasively in your mind and then try to copy how that person talks, okay?
가장 어려운 발음이 어떤 거라고 생각해요? 지금은 뭐 다 잘 되지만.
Yeah, I think for American people, the most difficult words to pronounce would be like
니은,
의리. 의리. Because in English, we never imagine and e at the same time. You know? 의리. 누구의. 누구의. 의견. I think words like that. Is hard too. Like, 음료수. That I can do it, but when I was still not so familiar with the Korean language, sometimes I would say 음료수 instead of 음료수, or it would become like 음료수, instead of just flat 음료수. So the biggest difference between Korean pronunciation and English pronunciation, I believe, is that English pronunciation is exaggerated, whereas Korean pronunciation is very modest, right? It's like oil. You are oil. You are oil. Yeah. So I had a hard time saying 6월 5일 many years ago. So 6월 5일 happened to be the day that I arrived in either Korea or China. And so when people would ask me, hey, when did you come to China or Korea? I would always respond by saying, you will oil. Because back then, I was still I was still inconsiderate. I didn't really care about how Korean my speech sounded, so I would just say it comfortably. And obviously that's a funny example, right? So now we're laughing about it instead of me being, oh, I used to say, you are oil. That's weird. Laugh about it.
되게 잘하고 싶었던 거.
I think so. It's like, it's not even,
되게 완벽하게 하고
그냥 잘하고 싶었던 거가 아니라 구리고 싶지 않았어.
꿀리고 싶지 않았어.
그치.
지고 싶지 않았어.
그치, 꿀리고 싶지 않았어. 이것도 this is another good example. 굴리고 싶지 않대. Yeah, anyway, so this is another great example. Now I'm never gonna forget. 꿀리지 않아. See, since it's my wife, she understands, she's trying her best. But if it wasn't my wife, if it was a person who I'm having an argument with, they might be like, 굴리고 싫어서. You're stupid. But I'm saying, 자기가 아니라 내가 막 argument, 다툼을 갖고 있었던 사람이었으면 굴리지 않게 그렇게 반응을 할 수 있겠지. 근데 그런 사람이면 어차피 지내고 싶지 않는 사람이고.
그렇지.
Okay? So guys, when you're learning a foreign language,
고쳐주는 사람이 좋은 사람인 거.
Yes, experiment with the language as much as possible. Yes,
yeah.
Because the people who will try their best to understand what you said, even if it's a little bit wrong, and then give you constructive criticism, those are the people that you want to be by your side, okay? And the individuals who make fun of you for not being able to speak a foreign language, they're inconsiderate people anyways. Don't stay around them. Don't be around them. Don't even waste your time with them. Don't embrace them with your presence, okay? Because let's be honest, I love it when foreigners try to speak English because I'm really proud of them. And it also makes me feel proud of my first language, okay? So guys, if you are a foreigner trying to learn a new language, experiment as much as possible, throw away your ego, and then look for the people that you want to become like, so that you have some kind of destination or goal, something that's tangible and something that you can actually recognize and acknowledge as your final destination. Okay? Alright guys, I'll see you in the next video, which will be covering task 4 and task 6, and I'm thinking about just winging it again. So if you like those sample responses of me just winging the responses, let me know, because honestly, I think those responses are going to be more entertaining and more creative, even more helpful to some extent. So let me know, guys. Peace.